Alright, let me give you the TLDR on how to set up NixOS on Hetzner Cloud. First, we're going to create a server, and you can leave almost all settings at their default. I will choose location Falkenstein and the cheapest instance type. Depending on what you want to use the server for, maybe you need to choose more resources. I will also select a firewall to limit traffic to my private network. Let's wait for the server to come up. You should check if your server is running UEFI or legacy BIOS. You can do that by opening the server console and rebooting the server. If upon reboot you see cBIOS, that means you're running legacy BIOS. Now let's mount the actual NixOS installer image. Navigate to ISO images and search for NixOS and then click mount. Reboot your server and open the server console. You should see the logs informing you that the server has booted from the ISO. I will change the password of my user to be able to connect through SSH. That will make the setup a bit easier. Switch to your local terminal and connect to the instance. As all commands that we need to run now require sudo, I will open an interactive root session. Let's partition our boot drive using ported. You don't have to use ported, you can use other tools like fdisk, gdisk or other tools as well. As this server is running legacy BIOS, I will create an MS-DOS partition table. I will create a single primary partition and assign it all available space on the hard disk. I will then configure this primary partition to be the boot partition. If you need to, you can also create a swap partition. I will not do that in this case. I will use LVM to create the volume that I want to install NixOS on. I will then create a file system of type ext4 on this volume. Once that's done, you can mount this volume to /mount and use the NixOS generate config command to create your initial configuration. You should be able to edit the file located in /mount/etc/nixos/configuration.nix. As this is a legacy BIOS system using grub, you need to define on which hard drive you want to install grub. I will also configure a host name and enable network manager. You can then set the time zone to your local time zone. I will also create a default NixOS user in addition to the root user that has sudo privileges. I would also like to pre-install Vim, so I'm adding it to environment.system packages. To be able to connect remotely after the reboot, I will also enable the OpenSSH daemon, disable the firewall as we can configure it using Hetzner, and then save and close this file. Using the NixOS install command, you can now start the actual installation. This will take a couple of minutes. Once it's done, it will ask you to set a new root password. Reboot the server once you're done. You will notice that the server booted back into the NixOS installer image. That's because it's still mounted. Power off this server, open the server in the Hetzner Cloud console and unmount the image. Then power on your server. You should now be able to log in using the root password you set during installation, and I will now define a password for the NixOS user I configured in the configuration.nix file. You should now be able to connect to your server using SSH. Congratulations, you've set up a NixOS server on Hetzner Cloud.